In section 2.4, we kind of want to think about some other ways that we'll run across graphs in real life and what that looks like. So there are a lot of ways to use graph to manipulate data. And these are frequently graphs that we've seen in the wild on the internet that we wanted you to see. So what are some of the big problems? Well, some of the classic problems are not labeling your axes. Right? You have axes, but you don't label them. For example, what the heck are the axes over here? What do each of these lines represent? Who knows? We have no idea, right? Or they can truncate the vertical axis. So you can see it's not starting at 0 the way it should. If you do that, it's okay as long as you make note of it, right? It is acceptable under some circumstances if you're trying to illuminate some kind of trend. However, it should be noted somewhat, right? They why you're doing what you're doing. And most of the time they don't. They just cut it off and move on. And it's not a good form. Sometimes they skip, right? There's discontinuity in the vertical or horizontal axes. So they skipped over certain things like where does this begin, right? What's going on here, right? They skipped the start, right? Where's the start? Um, and then sometimes they have empty space for no reason, right? You don't want to have empty space for no reason. You want to have reason for what's going on. So having inappropriate scale gives you empty space for no reason. All of these are bad signs, and there's more, lots more. Okay, and I have links up for various, if you want to see ugly graphs or look at funny graphs, you can go do that. All right, so what do we want to think about when we look at graphs? We obviously want titles and labels. We want to avoid distortion. We want to minimize the amount of white space, avoid clutter, avoid 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions is a big one. I see that getting used at different things for the college, and it's not appropriate. You should not have 3-dimensional graphs. Your circle graphs, your pie charts should be flat. They should be 2-dimensional. You do not use this more than one design in the same graphic, and avoid relative graphs that are devoid of data or scales, right? So you should have data and scales showing. You do not use more than one design. Minimize white space, right, etc. Okay, so and title and label clearly. Avoid distortion. So let's look at some examples, shall we? These are kind of fun. I found these from different websites. So this one is actually submitted by student. A student submitted this. This is a terrible pie chart. So the problem here is this is cluttered, right? There's way too many sectors of pie. There's actually so many that they wouldn't fit in. So this is a not avoiding clutter. This is too much clutter. You should never have a pie chart with this many sections. So this is too cluttered, right? Pie charts should not have this many sections. There's tons of them in there. They should have gone off and made a graph of something different. Or they should bundle into groups, like say continents. These are different countries, so bundle the continents together. That would have been better. These are called sectors, each one of these, the ones that look like a piece of pizza. Those are called sectors. All right, what about these pie charts? Well, this is 3-dimensional and it's terrible. And what's more, they even kind of half pulled out this. The problem with 3-dimensional is that the ones that are in the back of your vision don't actually get their full due. Because they're in the back, they feel like they're smaller than they actually are. There's a scale and perspective to these. And because of the perspective, the backside will look smaller. So this is, and it's from a real website. You can click on it. So this is from Wine Australia. So this is not, so this is 3D bad, right? 3D is always bad in graphs, especially pie charts. And that's because perspective makes the sections in back look smaller than they are, right? These ones back here, right? The rest of the world, ROW, that's rest of the world, and Italy. And it makes the sections in front look bigger than they are. Okay, and then I actually found this on a business website, believe it or not. um, oh, where do I begin? so, so this is terrible. This was for another country. I can't remember what this was. It was so House of Representatives, Labor. I think this was for the UK, Labor Coalition, Greens, and so on. Actually, I don't remember what country this was for. So, I mean, where do I even begin? So by shrinking it this small, you're actually making the sections smaller than they should be. If this was 39% to 12%, this is like 1,000 times bigger than this. Not 1,000, but it's well over 100 times bigger than this, right? They've overshrunk the small pieces. So all I don't even know. It's just so bad. Um, the sectors should be all part of the same circle. How about that? Sectors. This is so bad that there's nothing even listed for it in our good graphs list. Sectors should be on the same, all the same radius, right? This is a part of a circle. So, I mean, it should be more like this one. Heck, I'd take this one over that one because at least this has them all have the same radius. They're coming out from the same center. So shrinking some sections to this tiny bit, I don't know what it is. It's distorting. Not others is distorting. I mean, if you think about the second tenet in our list, it says avoid distortion. Boy, is this distortion right over here. That's a big old distortion. Okay, well, lest you think it's just pie charts, I want you to see bar charts can also be terrible. So here's some terrible bar charts. All right, so again, this is too cluttered, right? This is way too cluttered. There's too many sections. This was from an actual student project. It's way too cluttered, right? There's too many bars. There should only be about eh, up to 20 bars, and this is just way too many. So you can tell just by looking at it, right? No clutter. We want to avoid clutter, right? Remember that tenet. Avoid clutter, avoid distortion. Don't use 3 dimensions, right? So everything should be, right? Avoid 3D. Avoid 3D. All right. Then, oh my goodness, where do I begin? Okay, so just notice somehow magically, and I don't know how this is possible, but Canada has a higher number of 55 and it's higher than 21, but somehow the bar is lower. How is that possible? That's because there's no scale, right? So just, I mean, where do I begin? This number and this number, right? There's no way that is distorted, right? That's distortion because there's no scale, right? There's no horizontal or vertical axes over here. So they could just do whatever they wanted. And I have no earthly idea what they were thinking, but you can't have 55,000 be below 21,000. That makes no sense, right? So 55,900 is not lower than 21,600. Who the heck knows what was going on there? Nobody knows. We do not want to distort. Okay, what about this graph over here? Well, again, this is more clutter in a different way, and this is more common to see this. Well, first of all, there's no scale. So, I mean, right there we have problems, right? So there's no scale. So that's terrible. But also there's a line graph and a histogram, and they're not even on the same scale. So what's going on? Which one should we pay attention to? It's too cluttered. There's a picture up there for no reason, and then this other picture, and then another picture. So this was actually on a website, I believe it or not. So too cluttered. There's no scale, right? Too cluttered because there's two graphs, right? There's a line graph here and a bar graph. Is too many, right? And there's two extra photos for no reason. which just muddles everything up and makes it harder to read and look at. You want to keep your graphs clean and easy to read. You want to have scale and not be too cluttered. All right, so let's look at the last graphs. Again, these are all from, well, these ones are from students. That's from a student, but the rest of it's from real legit websites. You can actually click on these links on the electronic file and see them. This was actually posted as the annual budget for the EU, the European Union. I could have died when I saw it. I was like, are you kidding me? Where do we even begin? There's no scale. Where's the axes? Like, there's no axis. So I think they're trying to compare the lengths of the blocks here. But because there's no axes and no scale, it's just terrible. So that's awful. This is just atrocious. I mean, mine is in color. I know if you have the printed course pack, it's gray, but you got to be kidding me. Like, who could follow any of this? This is like different tech employers, and you're supposed to like follow a path. I mean, this is way too cluttered. This was actually on a job site. I couldn't believe it. It was so bad. There's, I don't even know where to begin with that. All right, this is supposed to be a pie chart because it's a circle, right? It's a circle graph. But circle graphs should have sectors from the center for easy comparison. They did this thing. How do you compare that shape with this shape? How do you know how much bigger that is, right? And don't even get me started with that one at the top. That's Bitcoin. So they should all be sectors, circle graph sectors, I should say sectors, should all be from the center for comparison. They should not be doing this soccer ball shape. They should look like spokes on a wheel for a pie chart, right? Circle graph pie chart should all be from the center, like spokes on a wheel. Or, if you will, pizza. And then last but not least, I mean, I think it's trying for some kind of pie chart maybe, but not really. And then it has a time series graph kind of crammed in down here, and these kind of random, I mean, maybe kind of bar charts if you want to think of that, but they're bar charts written in circles. There's all sorts of explanation all over the place. This is far too cluttered, right? It's too many graphs, so far too cluttered. This was from an actual website. So far too cluttered. There's two graphs instead of one. There's a time series right here. That much I can see. That's actually kind of not the worst graph ever. I mean, it looks like it's gotten a truncated vertical axis, but like we can deal with that. But it's got a time series graph, but how are you supposed to tell the differences when it's crammed into this small inch at the bottom of the paper, right? So far too cluttered. One graph is too crammed. The other graph is inappropriate. These circles on top of circles, that's not a thing. Right? So one graph is too crammed, right? Too small. That's the time series graph, right? The time series should not be crammed into the bottom corner like, or the bottom fifth like that. And then the circle graphs are really more like bar charts actually. It's the size of the circles, right? So the circle graph should be a bar chart because these are AOL and all of that. Those are qualitative data. So it's qualitative data with these numbers as their heights. So the circle graphs should be a bar chart. And there should only be one of them, and there's two of them. There's three graphs going on here. Be, right, right, it's too many. And the circle graphs should be bar charts, maybe? I mean, anything would be better than this. Bar charts or something like that. But it should not be three of them, and they should not have all this extra written stuff all over the place. If you need to write stuff like that all over the place, you're doing a bad job. Right? It is not a good graph. You want to edit your graphs just like you edit when you write. right? What is it you're trying to convey, and how can you do it in a way that is simple and clear and effective and accurate, right? That is what you want. And none of these graphs accomplish that. And they're hilariously bad. And I'd love to tell you that's all there is out there, but there are way more bad graphs out there. If you're interested, you can go look at the links that I posted on this page, and you will see plenty.